You are watching Average Joe Video. I am Joe, and I have a very interesting video for you today. It's a little bit different. I am going to show you how I repaired the volume control on my old Aiwa stereo system. This system is from 1997. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and let's go ahead and let's get started on the repair. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and power on the unit. And as you can see, everything illuminates the way that it's supposed to. I don't know if you noticed, but it is actually currently on volume level 0. That's the number that was flashing intermittently in addition to the radio station, which it still has one of my favorite radio stations programmed in. As you can see, it's not allowing me to change the volume level. So that number that's being displayed is a 0 or a 1. Obviously 0 would be totally muted and 1 is very, very low. Okay, before we unplug the system, we need to open the CD tray in order to remove the front bezel. You'll notice that there are 3 tabs underneath that hold the front bezel in place. We're just going to pull down on those 3 tabs and the front bezel pops right off. Next, we are going to close the CD tray. As you can see, mine is sticking just a little bit. And then we are going to unplug the system before moving on to the next step. Next, we are going to remove the optical port cover. This is because the optical port is part of the CD changer, and we're going to be removing it in a later step. Next, we are going to remove the top cover from the unit. It is held on with 2 screws. After removing the screws, you can simply lift up on the cover and slide it towards you. This will allow you to remove the cover entirely. Next, we are going to remove the side panels from the unit. I'm going to start with the panel on my left. As you can see, there are 2 screws that hold the panel in place. Once the screws are removed, you can simply slide the panel back to remove it. Now we can repeat the process with the right-hand side. Since the right-hand side is the side that contains the main circuit board, this panel often sticks. So you want to make sure that you remove it carefully, although you may have to give it a little bit of a pull to break it loose from the frame. Next, we need to remove 2 cables that are connected to the CD player. The first cable that is shown here is the power cable. Simply pull the cable off of the board like so. The second cable is actually located at the top of the unit, and once again you can just firmly pull the cable out of the socket. Now it is time to remove the CD player assembly from the unit. There are 2 screws that hold the CD player to the front of the unit. The first screw that you see here is on the right-hand side, and the second screw is on the left-hand side. After the screws are removed from the front of the unit, we're going to remove the 3 screws from the back of the unit. Even after all of the screws have been removed, the CD player assembly will still rest inside of the back cover as well as the front bezel. Just be very careful so that you don't knock it loose and have it fall inside the unit. Now we are ready to carefully lift the CD player assembly out of the unit. And I almost forgot, there is a small piece of tape that holds a wire to the side of the CD player assembly. You want to make sure you lift that back so that you can remove the CD player assembly entirely. Carefully remove the CD player assembly and set it aside, and we are ready to move on to the next step. The next step is to remove the back panel. As you can see, there are 7 screws that are holding the back panel onto the unit. I'm going to start here at the bottom and remove those screws first. I couldn't help but notice as I was removing the screws that the one sticker on the back says manufactured March 1997. So as I stated before, this is a very old unit. I'm looking forward to fixing this issue and putting it back in use. As I remove the remaining screws from the back panel, I do want to mention that you should use extra care when you are working around the jacks on the back of the unit, because if you're not careful when you remove the back panel, you could actually crack or break them. So you can see that I'm just gently lifting up and pulling back at the same time. That way I can work the plastic over those jacks. And as you can see, there is also a hook that retains the cable. That's why the panel would not release, and the panel just fell off. So we can say at this point it is removed. The next step is to partially remove the main circuit board. The main circuit board is the board on the right that contains the audio jacks. The reason it must be partially removed is because we need to remove the board at the front of the unit. The board at the front of the unit contains the component that controls the volume, which is what we want to repair. We are going to begin by flipping the unit on its side and removing the two screws on the bottom that are holding the main board in place. I should also mention that not only is the front board being blocked by the main board actually plugs into a socket on the front board, and we're going to take care of that in a moment. Now I am removing the two screws on the side of the unit that secure the main board. One is down on the frame and one is on the plastic. Now we are ready to separate the main board from the front board. This is the socket that I was speaking about. Just be careful when you're pulling the main board back that you do not damage the socket. Just pull it back gently and allow it to rest inside of the frame. In this step, we are going to prepare for the removal of the front control board. The first step in the process is to remove the front control board cable from the tape deck. The next step is to remove the volume control knob from the front of the unit. You can do this by gently pulling the knob towards you. Now it's time to remove the screws that secure the front control board to the unit. Please be aware that there are 11 screws in total. Make sure that you take your time when removing the screws so that you don't accidentally let them fall into the tape deck. It's important to understand that once all of the screws have been removed, the control board will not fall off of the unit. There are two plastic tabs that hold it in place. I will cover the removal of the front control board in the next step. As I remove the remaining screws, it should be noted that the two screws on the bottom right of your screen should be removed using a short-handled screwdriver. This is because there is minimal clearance between the front of the unit and the partially removed main control board, in addition to the metal piece that you see there. As mentioned in the previous step, there are two plastic tabs that hold the front control board in place. If you press both of these tabs, you will release the control board and you should be able to pull it towards you. You will notice there is a black ground wire on the right-hand side of the board that simply slides onto the frame using a spade connector. You can pull that wire off. Additionally, there is a black and red wire that connects to the CD changer controls on the top of the unit. This connector was stubborn to remove, so I decided to simply remove the circuit board for the CD changer controls. Just make sure that you are careful with the wires. Now you should be able to remove the control board from the unit. Be careful because there are a lot of plastic components on the front panel that are used to provide illumination. Just make sure that you reinstall them because it's easy to get them mixed up once they are all out of place. Before we tear apart the volume control, this is a great time to smash that like button if you're enjoying the video and to consider subscribing. You will notice that there are 4 metal clips that hold the top on this component. We're going to take a screwdriver and bend these 4 clips out of the way so we can separate this into 2 pieces. Use a screwdriver to move each tab out. Be careful not to bend the tabs too far because they could break off. Once all of the tabs are moved off of the top piece, you can actually remove the top half. As you can see, the contacts inside this piece are dirty. We're going to clean this using WD-40 Specialist Contact Cleaner. I'm going to hold the part upright so that the spray can actually drain off of there. Then I'm going to allow it a few moments to dry, and then it's going to be ready for the reinstallation. This is the first time I've ever used WD-40 Specialist Contact Cleaner, and I can honestly say that I'm very impressed. If you're interested in picking up a can, I have included a link in the description below. Okay, the next step is to clean the bottom portion of the volume control assembly. That's the green portion that you see on the screen. There are contacts in there. It is equally important that these contacts are clean so that this works correctly. Once again, I'm going to take the WD-40 Specialist Contact Cleaner and spray the area. Notice that I'm tilting the board vertically so that way the spray runs down. Then I'm going to allow it a few moments to dry before I place the top half back onto the board. I also want to mention that if you notice there are metal contacts at the bottom of this piece, it is very important that these contacts are bent upward like you see here in the image. I did bend them up a little bit further with a flathead screwdriver than what was seen earlier in the video. I just forgot to catch that part on camera. Now that it's dry, I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the top piece. Remember, you want to make sure that you are installing it with the correct orientation. Make sure that the tab is facing down the same way that it was initially. Next, we can go ahead and bend the tabs back down so that it will hold the top piece in place. Notice that I'm pressing down on each of the tabs after I bend them in, just to make sure that that top piece is good and snug. I'm also going to use some contact cleaner to clean the back of the circuit board as well before I reassemble the unit. Okay, the next step is to clean the unit. In this case, I am using an electric air duster that is suitable for electronics, and I'm just blowing out all of the excess dust before I put the unit back together. I am also going to use some WD-40 Specialist Contact Cleaner to clean the main board of the system. I'm simply going to spray it in its current position. Since it is vertical, it will run off. I simply have to allow it a little bit of time to dry thoroughly. I am also going to use some WD-40 Specialist Contact Cleaner to clean the jacks at the rear of the system. These jacks are notorious for accumulating excessive dust and dirt. Once again, given the orientation of the jacks, I simply just have to wait a few moments for them to dry thoroughly. Simply follow the steps in reverse order to reassemble the unit. Now it is time for the ultimate test. Let's see if the volume knob is working. There it is. The volume is going up. We'll see it's going to go the whole way to the max, which it looks like is 30. And obviously it goes back down to 0. And I'm moving the knob back and forth and it is responding perfectly. If you found this video helpful, be sure to smash that like button. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing for more helpful videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.